Welcome to our weekly program, The Inside Story of Chabad in America through the Middle Archives. This program is a continuation of last week. Last week was a very essential program. We spoke about certain letters of the Rebbe's principles. We spoke about the punishment, that punishment does not apply to God. Misfortune should not be as a punishment, but rather as a consequence. We spoke about it last week. And this is, I guess, probably in Israel, that's what happened. And same thing also, Golus. Golus is not a punishment. And I want to show you here a letter, and based on a Sikha soon, I want to tell you about that the Rebbe said that Golus is not a punishment. He proves it. Now, since now we're learning Chumash, we're now in Va'era, Shmois, the Yidden went into exile. So I want to share with you this Sikha, it's not a Sikha, this letter, based on a Sikha of the Rebbe. So I'll tell you what he writes. It's a long letter. By the covenant, by the bris ben Absorim, between the Eibishter, between God and Avram Avinu, that they made a bris ben Absorim, they cut animals, and this was like a bris, a covenant. This was the ahava, the love between the Eibishter and Avram Avinu. That was the time of the highest level of love by the bris ben Absorim. What did the Eibishter tell Avram Avinu by the bris ben Absorim? He told him that your children are going to be in exile for 400 years. And by the way, there are 4 types of love, ahava. There is an ahava between a husband and wife. That's one madrege, one type of ahava. Then there's an ahava between a parent and a child. Then there's an ahava between 2 friends. And then there's an ahava, a love, between a yid and the Eibishter. That's the highest level of love, of ahava. Here by the bris ben Absorim, this was the highest level of ahava between Avram Avinu and the Eibishter. So that the Eibishter told him that your children will be in exile. So the Torah says, in Ema Chashecha G'dayla Noflo Olov. Avram Avinu got scared. I mean, to hear that his children are going to be in exile. So the Medrash says, why does it use 4 different words? Could have said, Avram Avinu got scared. Why does it use Ema, Chashecha, G'dayla, Noflo? So the Medrash answers, because the Eibishter at the moment, by this covenant, the Eibishter told Avram Avinu that you will be in first Golus, 1 Golus, Ema, Golus Mitzrayim, Chashecha, 2nd Golus, G'dayla, a 3rd Golus, Noflo Olav. The Eibishter showed him 4 Golus, Golus Bavel, Golus Yovan, and our Golus. So that's why the Torah uses these 4 Lashonis. So the Rebbe says, why? First of all, why did God have to tell Avram Avinu that your children are going to be in exile? And this was first of all, he didn't have to tell him Bichlal. He could have lived 175 years and not know that his children will suffer. And Bifrat, he says, when did he tell him? He told him at the time that they were in the highest level of love. Is that the time to tell him? When somebody has a big simcha, somebody's marrying off his child, are you going to tell him that time something not good? Or are you going to tell him? Or are you going to wait for after the wedding? So why did the Eibishter B'davka at that time tell him that your children are going to be in Golus? So we see from here that since the Eibishter God did tell him, the Rebbe says, so we see that Golus is not because of punishment. Not because, otherwise the Eibishter didn't want to punish Avram at that moment. Golus is only to get to the Geula. you have to go through Golus or whatever, but the word is not punishment. And the mashal is given, he just mentions the mashal, an example. When a mother diapers a child, she puts hot water, she just diapers him. The child cries. Maybe it hurts. Does the mother want to hurt the child? The mother doesn't want to hurt the child. In order to make him clean, she has to put hot water, or she has to do it, but the child doesn't feel right. But at that moment, she doesn't want to hurt him. The same thing also here. Golus is not a punishment. Also, the other mashal, which Hasidus brings down, the Rabbi just makes a nekuda, that when a teacher learns with a student, and they're very much engrossed in learning, all of a sudden, the teacher turns away from the student, and the student doesn't know why. What wrong did he do? He turns away, he doesn't know. Why did he go away from him? Why did the teacher turn away? Because when he learned with the student, that moment, a certain spark, chokhmah, fell into his mind. He didn't want to lose it. So he turned away to think into it, to bring it to Bina, then to bring it to Das. So he should be able to explain it to the child. But by the child at that moment is a churban. He thinks that the teacher maybe doesn't like him anymore or whatever. He doesn't know. But is that the reason? The same thing also the Eibishter. Maybe we feel but the Eibishter does not punish. This is what the nekuda of that letter is, based on a sikha. So the same thing also, when people have challenges, could be different reasons why. The Eibishter wants to test. But we should know one thing. Ein ra yored milmailo, as we said last week. As the Maggid says, there is no ra, there is no punishment. And God gives challenges so we can overcome the challenges. Whatever the Eibishter does is not to hurt, but if he does it, he gives you koiches that you overcome. This reminds me also, I think I mentioned it once, that, it happened the same thing in not the same as October 7th, but the Hebron Massacre. Pashat killed Yidden. They slaughtered Yidden. There was a terrible time. The Frierdiker Rebbe was in Israel. He left a few days before the Hebron Massacre. So he was on the boat going back, and there was a Hebron Massacre, and the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, was told that there's a Hebron, that what happened in Hebron. So he got Pashat sick. They say he got very sick. I don't know if people know. He got very, very sick. He was in Pashat Sakona. He heard such a thing. So they had to call a doctor. In the boat, there was one doctor. His name was Dr. Volach. He was from Israel. He was a religious Jew. He was a big doctor. So they told, please come to the Rebbe. The Rebbe is not well. So he ran to the Rebbe. And he came to the Rebbe and he started to cry. And he said, since the Eibishter doesn't bring a sickness if there's no cure. HaKadosh Baruch Hu magdim refuah lamako. If somebody is sick, there is a refuah. There is a cure. Or there's somebody to cure. Otherwise the Eibishter wouldn't do it. So he asked the Rebbe Mechile, forgiveness, that he's on the boat. Because if he wouldn't be on the boat, there was no other doctor, then the Frierdiker Rebbe wouldn't have gotten sick. So he's asking for forgiveness. But the Eibishter is good, and Teva HaTev Lahetiv, and this is how people, going back from last week's program, that the Bnei HaYeshiva, the way they were saying that there is such a thing that Eibishter punishes, there is no punishment. The Rebbe wants to stress, there's many, many letters in English, probably in Ikras Kodesh also, about punishment. The Eibishter does not punish Yidden. In Mitzvah Hashem, next week, we will continue another letter from the Rebbe. Thank you very much.